and welcome to Odds on Wimbledon 2022. Let's analyze the Grand Slam on grass in London with Sean Calvert and of course with you. Remember to leave your comments, press the like and subscribe. And now let's go on with the show. We are going to analyze Wimbledon 2022, of course, with Sean Calvert. Sean, nice to see you again.
Morning, how are you doing?
I'm good, and we have some news in this Wimbledon because the Russian players cannot be there, so there are no points to be given to the players. Do you think this can modify a little bit the tournament? Not really, right?
Well, it's made it. It's a really unique situation, isn't it? No Russian players, no Belarusian players. The world number one and the world number two aren't playing either. So it's a strange one. Yeah, the ranking points is a really tough one to take for some of the players. You know, you've got guys that made the semi-finals last year, like Shapovalov. You know, he's going to if he loses in the first round, he's lost 710 ranking points, which is not easy to get back. He could drop from top 10 to around about 25 if he loses in the first round. There's plenty of others. People like Hurkacz made the quarterfinals. He could lose a lot of points if he doesn't do well. It's a really tough situation for the players. It remains to be seen how motivated they're going to be. I mean, it's Wimbledon. Obviously, they'll be motivated, but there's going to be some bitterness there, I think.
Well, let's analyze one by one. Sean is in Mallorca enjoying one of the preparation tournaments for this Wimbledon. We enjoyed Halle, Queens, Hertogenbosch, Stuttgart, like always. And Mallorca, of course. And let's take a look at the beginning of the odds, Sean, and we see overwhelming favorite, Novak Djokovic, 1.73. Of course, we all remember that he won last season, defeating Berrettini in the final, 6 titles in the London grass, only 1 trophy this season in Rome. In your opinion, is a bit short? I mean, of course, 1.7, no one, I think, would put the money on Djokovic, but is overwhelming favorite, no, in my opinion, too much.
Yeah, I mean, odds on, it's tricky, isn't it? Because you know, he hasn't really played that much this season. He's played a fair bit in the clay season, but it's Novak Djokovic. I mean, like last year, if you remember last year before Wimbledon, we were talking about can he win all 4 and do the Golden Slam as well with the Olympics, weren't we? That ended up a bit of a sour note, and it hasn't really improved much for him since. In all honesty, we could be in a season here when Djokovic doesn't win a single major because he's not. He may well not play in the US Open because at the time that we're talking, he's not allowed into the US. So unless that changes, he's not going to win the US Open. And now we're talking about Nadal possibly winning all 4. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, Djokovic obviously game fabulously well suited to grass. This slower grass at Wimbledon, there was only 81% hold to serve here last year. It's not quick. It's tricky in the first weeks. It bounces a little bit lower. But conditions perfect for Djokovic. I mean, but yeah, odds on for a guy that hasn't really had anything like a full season, really. Difficult, fabulous record here. He's the obvious favourite. I mean, you sort of have to make him about an even money favourite. Odds on is too short, but obviously I wouldn't back him. You'll probably get bigger than that at some point during the tournament, I would have thought, if you bet him play. But yeah, obvious favourite. Difficult to say that he isn't, but value, absolutely not, really.
The season has been a bit disappointing, right? For Djokovic, only 1 trophy in Rome, in Roland Garros. He lost in the quarterfinals with Rafa Nadal. So we all expect more, no, from Nole.
Yeah, I mean, you probably expect more of himself. I mean, what a performance it was for Nadal to beat him. I'm sure you enjoyed that one at the French Open. You must have been delighted if you're watching, you know, Nadal against Djokovic. I can't even. It's unbelievable considering how poorly he played against Felix the previous round, and he came out and produced that against Djokovic. Nobody can do anything about that, even if you know Novak Djokovic. You just have to say too good. But yeah, his season's, as you said, his season's not been great. But and part of that has been down to his own stance on vaccinations. He could have had a vaccine and gone to Australia. He chose not to. So that's down to him. So really, I mean, form-wise, in the clay, he was fine. He took a little bit of time to get going. I think he's probably playing at the Hurlingham Club this week, which is what he normally does in preparation for Wimbledon. Form-wise, I don't really see a problem. It's just the odds are too short, and there are other possibilities.
For instance, next one is Berrettini, odds 7.0 for the Italian player. He won in Queens against Krajinovic. He won also in Stuttgart against Andy Murray. He did the semifinals in the Australian Open, as we know. He also arrived to the final last season against Djokovic in Wimbledon. So a grass specialist like Berrettini is the second favorite, Sean.
Yeah, we talked about him last year, didn't we, during the clay season? We said 50-1 on Berrettini for Wimbledon is a good bet, and it ended up working out. And he started the tournament 12-1 last year. Now he's about 6 or 7-1. Again, is that value? Not really. I mean, if he played Djokovic in the final, he'd probably be not far off. Well, he'd be slightly shorter than that, but there's no real value. I mean, the guy's won 20 out of his 21 last matches on grass. Won Queens twice. Stuttgart, exceptional form. You can't say anything else. But the book, obviously, he's no stranger to the bookmakers now, is he, on grass? Last year we got him at a good price, even though he started the tournament 12-1. Now you're looking at 5-6-1. He could be drawn in the half with Djokovic. He might play him in the semi-finals or something. It's too short. Yeah, he's got a fabulous chance. If you're backing Berrettini and you're willing to back him at sort of 6-1. 7-1, then you're going to have a really, really good run for your money. It's not my sort of bet. But yeah, obvious contender. Has to be one of the top 2 or 3 most likely players to win this Wimbledon, yeah.
One specialist in grass and similar odds than Berrettini, we find Rafa Nadal. 7.5 for him. Less than 1 month ago, Sean, we were talking about his physical conditions ahead of Roland Garros. Was a big question mark. And it is still ahead of this Wimbledon, because despite winning his 14th Roland Garros, he couldn't even walk the day after. On Monday, it looks like he's gonna play, and if he's in good form physically, or even with the injection he's getting before the games, he won both Grand Slam this season, and he's showing really, really competitive in every single game. So of course we should take him in consideration, although his last victory in the tournament was in 2010, a long time ago.
Yeah, he doesn't often play Wimbledon, and he hasn't made the final since 2011. He sometimes plays it a little bit half-heartedly, because he's normally absolutely shattered from the clay season. And it is a very quick turnaround between the grass and the clay and the grass. And that's why very, very few people have done Wimbledon and French Open back-to-back. Djokovic did it last year, but not many people do it. Obviously a massive challenge for Nadal, but what hasn't been a massive challenge for him this season? He came into the Australian Open, hadn't played for about 6 months. So was talking about never playing again because of the foot and complications regarding that. Came in, won the Australian Open. Same thing in the clay season. Struggling, had to virtually limped off court against Shapovalov in Rome. Everybody was thinking, well, how's he going to win the French? He can't even walk. Next thing you know, he's won the French Open. So you can't write this guy off, can you? Any kind of injury doesn't seem to be a problem if you're as committed as he is. Now he could win the calendar slam, which obviously has not been done since Rod Laver in the 60s. Last year we were talking about Djokovic doing it. Now Nadal could do it. It's a very real possibility. He's not telling me he's not thinking about that. He's thinking about that. It's probably the only reason the main reason he's probably coming to Wimbledon. He could easily have cried off and nobody would have said anything, would they? With the foot, everyone would have just gone, well, yeah, he's injured. He's coming. He was here last week, just down the road from where I am now at Mallorca. He's practicing on the grass courts here. Yeah, I mean, why not? If he wins this, which is quite possible, he's seeded number 2. He's not going to meet Djokovic until the final, and the US Open without Djokovic, and then you're looking at Nadal winning all 4 in a year when people thinking he was going to retire. What else can you say about this man? He's an absolute legend of the sport, competitive spirit that very few sports have ever seen. And if you're writing him off for this Wimbledon, you're making a mistake. It's as simple as that. Can he win it? Yeah, of course he can. He shouldn't because of his foot, But if he's able to numb that pain again in a similar way that he did in Roland Garros, then yeah, massive chance.
And the odds are not bad at all, as we spoke in the French Open. It's similar, if I don't remember bad, 7.5 for Nadal. Remember, 4 titles already this season, only 3 defeats. And it's true that the last final in Wimbledon was in 2011, but in 2019, for instance, he reached the semi-final against Federer. So he knows how to get until the latest stages of this tournament, something that is still a big question mark for Carlos Alcaraz. Odds for him 8.5. When we were talking about the French Open, he was one of the main candidates to win the title. 4 titles already this season, but we don't know how he is gonna behave on grass, right, Sean? He hasn't played since that quarterfinals in Roland Garros against Zverev.
Yeah, I mean, massive question mark, obviously, in terms of his suitability to grass courts. He's only played 6. He's played 6 matches, I think, on grass. 4 at Wimbledon juniors, junior level, played 4 times there, and twice at Wimbledon last year, got beat by Medvedev pretty easily. Obviously, that's a long time ago now, but I wouldn't. You can't rule him out because he's shown on what a great player he is on hard courts. He's anything but just a clay court player. Perfectly capable on hard courts. These Wimbledon courts, as I said, they're not quick compared to places like Queens, Stuttgart, and Halle. So I don't think the conditions are going to be that difficult for him. But it's very difficult to see him actually winning the tournament, isn't it? He's obviously going to be a fairly major player. I can't see him not making the second week and not being around there or thereabouts. But lack of experience on grass, I can't see it. I mean, if you've got a choice of backing Alcaraz and Nadal at similar odds, I mean, I know where my money would be going. 100% on Nadal. Yeah, possibility. Alcaraz, obviously, he's up there, and deservedly so, because of what he's done on hard courts as well as clay. But I can't see any value in him at all, to be honest.
I'm surprised he hasn't played, any tournaments pre-Wimbledon in this case.
Yeah, he could have played Mallorca. I don't see any reason why he couldn't have played Mallorca. He could have played any of them. He's obviously chosen not to. There's obviously a reason for that. But he's perhaps needed to rest. He's only young still. He had a long spell on clay, didn't he? Yeah. He played quite a lot of matches this year. Tough matches on clay. He's probably just needs a break because, it's that, as I said, that this grass swing is just follows so quickly on the heels of the clay. He probably just needed mentally, physically, probably just needed a break, and that's good management probably.
And another player that I really like, Felix, you mentioned him before, odds 13 for the Canadian. He's really playing to prepare Wimbledon. He played in Halle, quarterfinals in Hertogenbosch, semi-final last season. He reached the quarterfinals in Wimbledon, beating Kyrgios or Zverev, for instance. So he can be a contender, or at least to arrive at the later stages. I also pretty much enjoyed his game in Roland Garros against Nadal in this 5th set.
Yeah. A game that's very suitable to grass. Felix, big serve, big forehand. The problem with him is, and the problem with a lot of these guys that we're about to mention, they just don't break serve enough. I mean, Felix holds serve 90% of the time on grass, but he only breaks. Where are we with the statistics? He only breaks about. He breaks 17% of the time. It's not enough. It's better than some of the guys we're about to mention. But if you're breaking 17% of the time on serve, you're relying an awful lot on tie breaks. And that's the worry I have with Felix. I think he's definitely going to be there or thereabouts, like you said. I think he's going to be quarterfinals, semi-finals. I don't see him beating someone like Djokovic or Nadal or Berrettini in a Wimbledon semi-final. I'm just not seeing it with him. He's got a little bit, a fair bit to prove in terms of his composure in these big matches. He doesn't seem to have quite that winning mentality that the elite guys have. He's got the game. I just don't think he doesn't break serve enough, and I don't think he's quite got the mentality in the big moments. I'm not sure about him there.
And the last name I'm going to mention is Hurkacz. Odds for him are 19, another grass specialist as Berrettini, won title this season and was in the grass of Halle against Medvedev, beating, for instance, Felix, beating Kyrgios, so he's doing well. Also in Stuttgart, in this case, he lost the first game he played against Fucsovic. Since he's a grass specialist, can you see him, for instance, in semi-final, quarterfinals?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're saying to me that Felix is 12-1 and Hurkacz is 18-1, then I think Hurkacz is absolutely a better bet. For me, he's got he's got more composure, he's got a better mentality than a stronger mentality, should I say, than Felix. A little bit calmer in these big moments. Been to the semi-finals before, so that's not going to be a new thing to him. I think the thing with Hurkacz, until last year, he wasn't really particularly suitable on grass or good on grass. But you said there he lost in the first round Stuttgart to Fucsovic, and the Stuttgart is a very different grass to Wimbledon. Bounces low, it's really quick. For a big guy, it's hard to get down to some of these shots. But he's a guy that really works his way into a grass season. He did it last year. Started out slowly, ended up making the semi-finals of Wimbledon. Every chance to do it again. Again, we're talking about the same problem with him that we talked about with Felix a minute ago. He doesn't break serve anywhere near enough. Holds 90% of the time, breaks 13% of the time. So he's relying a lot on tie breaks. He's one that you'd worry about in the first round, second round. I think, God, is he going to go for 5 long sets? Because I think he's vulnerable on the slicker, lower bouncing grass, and you get that in the first week. If he gets past the first week, which he should, I think he's going to be a major contender. I think semi-finals again is very possible for him, and then it's obviously the look at the draw after that. Obviously, you wouldn't fancy him particularly against Djokovic or Nadal in the final. But if you're backing each way, value is a little bit thin on the ground this Wimbledon. But I think if you're getting about 18-1 on Hurkacz each way, that's probably about the best bet, I would say.
And as always, I'm gonna mention some names, and you can tell me if you think they can arrive to the later stages of the competition. We have Kyrgios, odds are 21 for him, Cilic 23, Tsitsipas 26, Murray 36, Shapovalov 41, or Korda 91, or for instance Casper Ruud, just the runner-up in Roland Garros. Odds are 101. Do you see some of these names arriving to the semi-finals, to the quarterfinals, to the later stages, so we can back them, for instance, when they are playing third or fourth round, and we see good odds for them?
Yeah, I mean, if you're backing Kyrgios at 20-1, you're taking a bit of a risk, aren't you? He's got the game for grass. We all know that. It just doesn't have the mentality. He's not. You don't just win a Grand Slam by doing what he does, which is kind of rock up to a tournament and play. How many Grand Slam winners have done that? Just don't bother playing for 3 or 4 months of the season, then turn up and play and then see what happens. Yeah, obviously he's got the game. Again, he doesn't break serve enough 13% of the time. Can you really see him keeping his emotions in check for 2 weeks of a Grand Slam? I'd be amazed, to be honest, if he did. Tsitsipas, you can get at about 50-1. That tells you everything you need to know about his ability on grass. It's too quick for him. The backhand gets rushed. He's not comfortable on it. He's only won 10 matches out of the 20 he's played. So you'd rule him out. You'd rule Casper Ruud out. He's won 2 out of the 7 matches he's played on grass. Looked absolutely all at sea at it at Queen's Club. So you're looking at players that for me, if you're looking at long shots, looking at people like de Minaur, Korda, Fritz, these guys who do have the chances. I mean, Fritz has been a bit disappointing lately, but he got injured during the clay sweep. His foot was a problem. He didn't really train much before the French Open. But if he's getting back towards fitness next week and he gets through the first couple of rounds, I think Fritz is going to be a big danger. Similarly, de Minaur, another great grass court player, it should be thereabouts in the quarterfinals. Korda's been disappointing last couple of weeks. Lost yesterday to John Millman in Eastbourne. Lost to Pablo Carreño Busta in Halle. So it's not the start I would expect for you, and he was so close to get into the quarterfinals in a ridiculous 5-set match against Khachanov, where they both served the match about 20 times each. But if he finds his form during the first week, Korda, he could go deep. He's 100-1. Cilic, another one. we didn't expect to be at the semi-finals of the French Open, playing fabulously well. If he brings that brand of tennis that he played in the French to Wimbledon, he's a massive contender as well. Again, disappointing in Queens last week, but that was his second grass court match since the French. If these guys get through their first rounds, for second rounds, third rounds, Cilic is often a guy that is a little bit vulnerable early on. But if he gets to the second week, you don't want to be. If you're Djokovic and Nadal, particularly Nadal, you don't want to be seeing Cilic in your section early on. This guy can beat anybody on this day, more or less. So I think those are the names that you've got to be looking at for each way. Those are the ones that could definitely earn you some money.
Great, Sean. Then another time, let's enjoy another Grand Slam. And we have all the knowledge now, thanks to you and thanks to Oddspedia. Thanks, Sean, and enjoy Mallorca, of course.
Pleasure. Cheers. Thank you.
Who is going to win Wimbledon 2022? Please let me know in the comment section. Tell me your favorite player to win this Grand Slam. And of course, don't forget to press the like and subscribe. And also remember that we have a podcast for you. Thanks for watching. See you very soon.